Okay, so now that we have established the connection between our database and the website, let us now go ahead and display the values from the database to the website. Right, so for that, let us go back to W3 Schools again, and this piece of code here will basically read the values and display it to the user. What we need to do is we need to change from where the values are to be read and things like that. So let us copy this piece of code and we'll paste it here after the else clause and before the ending of the connection, which is this line here which closes the connection. Right, so the select statement in SQL is used to choose what to display to the user, and we are displaying it using this echo command here, right? So now in our case, the first column is called username and the second column is called password. So let me do that, and we don't have a third column, so I'll remove the last name there. And after the from, we need to write the name of the table, which in our case is user data. Right, so basically we are selecting the column username and the column password from user data table and storing it in a variable called $SQL, right? And then the result of this particular statement is stored in this variable which is executing this query. Right, so basically what we're doing here is we are writing an SQL query, we are storing it in a variable called SQL, and then we are executing that query using this MySQL query function, and we are storing the result in another variable. And now we'll basically check if this result has multiple values, so we'll run a loop, this while loop, and we'll display all of those values. Right, so if MySQL I number of rows of the result is greater than 0, right, so the name of the function pretty much explains it. If the number of rows in the result are greater than 0, we'll output the data of each row. Right, so since in our case we have 2 rows, so this will be greater than 0 and this condition will be satisfied. So now we'll go in here. So while the $row has is a part of result, which means that as long as there is a value in result which is not yet displayed, it will go inside the while loop. And here we'll write username because that is the first value that we are displaying, and inside this row double quotes we need to mention the name of the column that we want to display, right? So I'll call username here, and similarly here I'll say password. I missed an O, right? And here inside we'll write password. Since we don't have a third column, we'll remove this piece of code and we'll add a dot here. So the dot here is basically used to combine multiple echo statements, right? So there are 4 echo statements, 1 2 3 4, right, and 5, this BR line also, and so we are combining all those with this dot operator, right? Otherwise, if there are no values in the database, it will show 0 results. So let us quickly save this and try running it and see what we get. So I'll go here and I'll refresh it. So as you can see, we get username guru1, password guru1, and username guru2, password guru2, which means that we are successfully able to read the data from the database. If however I remove this user data and write some sample here, which basically means that there is no table with that name, so there should be 0 values in the result. So now when we refresh it, we'll find that it shows 0 results, right? So that is how you can ensure that you are reading data from the correct table. So when we say user data here and we refresh it again, we will find that we get the proper output, right? So that is how you read and display values from the database.